Tom Harris wiped his hands on a rag, leaving smudges of grease on his worn-out jeans as he crouched beside an old engine in the corner of his small garage. The sun was beginning to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor, and a soft breeze carried the smell of oil, dust, and freshly cut grass from the street outside. Tom had spent most of his life surrounded by engines, tires, and tools, ever since he was a boy helping his father repair cars in a tiny workshop that now only lived in his memories. Life had not been easy for him after his wife passed away 5 years ago. Raising his daughter, Lily, alone had been a constant challenge, one that left him tired at night but filled with a quiet pride that no amount of fame or money could match. Lily was 10 now, bright, curious, and full of energy, often running around the small backyard pretending to be a race car driver like her father once had been, or imagining herself on adventures across the country. Tom had tried to keep his past life as a NASCAR driver a secret from her, not because it was shameful, but because he wanted her to understand that life was not about fame or trophies. It was about doing your best every day, caring for those you love, and finding joy in small moments, like teaching her how to change a tire or fix a squeaky brake. He smiled at the thought of her laughing as she tried to imitate his serious mechanic face, her little hands smudged with oil as she handed him wrenches, completely unaware that the man kneeling in the garage had once been the fastest driver on the tracks, cheered by thousands of fans who had believed he could never lose. He shook his head, the memory bittersweet, and turned back to the engine in front of him, tightening a bolt and listening to the soft clank echo through the quiet garage. Just as he reached for another wrench, a deep purr of a luxury car engine broke the silence, and a sleek BMW glided down the street before stopping abruptly in front of his garage. The car gleamed in the fading sunlight, its paint shining like polished glass, and the air smelled faintly of new leather and gasoline. Tom straightened up, brushing his hands on the rag again, and watched as the driver's side door opened. A young woman stepped out, her brow furrowed with worry, her hair pulled into a messy ponytail, and her hands clutching a small bag that looked far too heavy for her slight frame. She looked at Tom hesitantly, almost as if she were afraid he would say no before she even spoke. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice tinged with anxiety, I don't have much money, and my car broke down just now. I was wondering, could you maybe fix it? I don't have cash, but I can give you a meal. Please." Her eyes were wide and earnest, and Tom noticed the tremor in her hands, the way she shifted her weight nervously from one foot to the other. He felt a twinge of empathy, knowing what it was like to struggle, to feel helpless while bills piled up and responsibilities weighed on your shoulders like stones. He nodded slowly, a faint smile forming on his face. "Bring it in," he said simply. "Let's see what we can do." She exhaled sharply, relief washing over her face, and guided the BMW carefully into the garage, the tires squeaking slightly on the concrete. Tom walked around the car, eyes trained on the engine, the body, and the tires, as memories of his racing days surged briefly in his mind. He remembered the smell of burning rubber, the roar of the crowd, the thrill of speed, and the heartbreak of the accident that had ended his career. No one had seen him race since then, and he had chosen this quiet life not out of shame, but because it gave him space to heal, to raise Lily, and to find joy in the ordinary moments that people often overlooked. He popped the hood, and the young woman peered over the edge, her eyes bright with hope. I don't even know how to check the engine," she admitted, a hint of embarrassment in her voice. Tom chuckled softly, the sound echoing lightly in the garage. "Don't worry about that. I've got it covered. Just stay out of the way for now, and we'll see what's going on." He ran his hands over the parts of the engine, listening carefully to the faint irregularities in its hum, noticing immediately the telltale signs of a failing alternator and a misfiring spark plug. He shook his head slightly, but his expression remained calm, giving the woman no reason to panic. "It's going to be okay," he said, more to comfort himself than her, "just a few adjustments, and this beauty will run like new again." Emma, as he would soon learn her name was, relaxed slightly, leaning against the wall and watching him work with fascination. She had never seen anyone handle a car like this, with such patience, skill, and respect, and she found herself curious about this quiet man who seemed to know every part of the machine as if it were an extension of his own body. She asked questions about the tools, the different components, and he answered in simple, clear words, careful not to overwhelm her with technical jargon. As he worked, he found himself asking her questions in return, about her life, her family, and what had brought her to this moment. She spoke softly, sharing that she worked long hours at a small cafe and had been trying to help her younger brother with school while managing her own bills, all the while feeling the constant pressure of not being able to afford unexpected expenses, like a car repair. Tom listened quietly, nodding along, thinking of his own life and how he had struggled to raise Lily alone after losing his wife. There was a shared understanding in their silence, a connection between two people carrying invisible burdens, each trying to make the best of their circumstances. Time passed quickly, though neither seemed to notice, and the sun dipped further behind the horizon, leaving a warm orange glow that lit up the garage in a soft, comforting light. The engine finally roared to life under Tom's hands, smooth and steady, and he looked up to see Emma's face light up with genuine relief and gratitude. I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice almost trembling. Tom smiled faintly, shaking his head. "No need to thank me," he replied. "Sometimes a little help is all anyone needs." She insisted on offering a meal as payment, and he waved her off, saying it was unnecessary, though deep down he appreciated the gesture. As she prepared to leave, Tom noticed something in her expression, something that mirrored the determination and courage he had once seen in himself on the racetrack. She didn't just want help, she wanted to keep moving forward despite the obstacles, and in that, he saw a spark that reminded him of why he had chosen to live a life of quiet service rather than chase fame. As the BMW disappeared down the street, Tom returned to his garage, wiping his hands once more, and found himself thinking about the strange twists of life, how a single encounter could awaken memories of the past, stir emotions long buried, and remind a man that even when the world felt heavy, moments of connection, kindness, and shared struggle could make all the difference. He glanced toward the small kitchen window, where he could see Lily finishing her homework, and felt a quiet satisfaction. The day had started like any other, but now it held a subtle magic, a reminder that even a lost NASCAR legend, hidden from the world, could still touch lives in ways he never imagined, simply by showing skill, compassion, and humanity, and perhaps, just perhaps, the universe had more surprises in store for him than he could ever guess. The next morning, Tom woke up to the soft sunlight streaming through the small kitchen window, casting warm patterns across the table where Lily was already sitting with her breakfast, carefully cutting her toast into tiny squares while humming a tune she had learned at school. Tom poured himself a cup of coffee and watched her, feeling a quiet pride that never faded, no matter how many sleepless nights or long days he endured. He thought about yesterday, about the BMW and the young woman who had asked him for help, and a strange mix of emotions stirred inside him. It wasn't just satisfaction from fixing the car, it was the feeling of connection, the knowledge that even after years of hiding from the world, his skills, his patience, and his heart could still make a real difference in someone's life. He wondered if Emma knew how rare that kind of kindness had become, and he smiled faintly, shaking his head as he remembered the look of relief in her eyes when the engine roared to life again. That small moment, fleeting as it was, had made his day, and perhaps even more than that, it reminded him that life could still surprise him in the most unexpected ways. After dropping Lily off at school, Tom returned to the garage, tidying up his tools and organizing spare parts while listening to the soft hum of the radio, which played old rock songs he had loved since his youth. The garage had become more than just a place to fix cars, it was a refuge, a space where he could think, breathe, and remember who he was, without the weight of fame or expectation pressing down on him. As he worked, he noticed a car slowly approaching, and his heart gave a small jump when he saw the familiar sleek shape of the BMW. Emma pulled in, looking more confident today, though there was still a hint of worry in her expression. "Good morning," she called softly, stepping out and brushing her hair back from her face. Tom wiped his hands and smiled. "Morning. Did the car run okay on your way here?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, thank you again. I was wondering if you had time to check one more thing. It's just making a little noise, but I don't know if it's serious." Tom gestured for her to pull the car inside, and as she guided it carefully into the garage, he noticed the way her eyes followed every movement he made, curious and attentive, as though she wanted to understand the world he had lived in for so long. As he opened the hood and examined the engine, Emma asked questions about his past, gently probing with polite curiosity. "You seem so good at this," she said, hesitating slightly. "Have you always worked on cars?" Tom paused for a moment, unsure how much to reveal. Part of him wanted to tell her everything: the trophies, the races, the crowds, and the sudden disappearance from the tracks, but he decided to keep it simple for now. "I've always loved cars," he said finally, smiling faintly. "They're like puzzles. You figure out how each piece works, and when it all comes together, it feels right." Emma nodded, impressed, and for a moment they shared a quiet silence, broken only by the soft clinks of tools and the faint rumble of the engine as he checked each part carefully. As he worked, he asked her about her life, genuinely interested in her story. She spoke of her younger brother, her long hours at the cafe, and the constant stress of trying to balance everything. Tom listened, feeling a deep empathy for her struggles. He remembered his own nights filled with worry, wondering if he could pay the bills, buy groceries, and still make time for Lily. He offered small pieces of advice not because he wanted to lecture, but because he wanted her to know she wasn't alone, that someone who had faced challenges understood her pain and determination. Hours passed quickly as they talked, laughed, and occasionally fell into thoughtful silence, the kind of silence that feels comfortable and safe rather than awkward. By the time the engine was running smoothly and the noise had disappeared, Emma was smiling, relief shining in her eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said softly. Tom shook his head, brushing off the compliment with a modest laugh. "You would have figured it out eventually," he replied. "You're stronger than you think." Emma's smile widened, and for a moment, Tom saw a spark of hope, determination, and courage in her eyes, the same qualities that had carried him through his own darkest days. As she prepared to leave, she paused and looked at him thoughtfully. You're different from anyone I've met," she said quietly. "There's something about you, like you've lived a life full of experiences I can only imagine." Tom felt a strange warmth at her words, though he didn't respond immediately. He watched her drive away, the BMW's engine fading down the street, and he felt a mix of nostalgia and quiet satisfaction. The encounter reminded him that his past, though hidden, could still touch lives in ways he had never expected. When he returned to the small kitchen to make a sandwich for himself, Lily bounded in, holding a drawing she had made. "Dad, can I help you with the lawnmower today?" she asked excitedly. Tom laughed, ruffling her hair. "Sure, let's see what we can do." In that moment, he realized that life's greatest joys didn't come from applause, trophies, or fame. They came from moments like this, from helping others, sharing laughter, and being present for those you love. As he thought about Emma, her courage, and her gratitude, he felt a quiet hope that life still had surprises in store for him. Perhaps one day, he would share the full story of his racing days, the victories, the heartbreak, and the lessons learned along the way. But for now, he was content. Content to live in the present, to be a father, a friend, and a quiet hero in his own way, showing that even those who had faced the highest peaks of fame could find happiness in small, meaningful connections, and that life, in all its unexpected twists, could still hold moments of joy, learning, and simple human kindness. A few days after the BMW incident, Tom was in the garage organizing spare parts when he heard the soft hum of a car pulling into his driveway. He looked up and saw Emma, her face bright but carrying a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She stepped out, holding a small envelope in her hand, and waved shyly. "Hi, Tom," she said, walking toward him. I just wanted to thank you again. I know you said you didn't need anything, but please, at least accept this." Tom raised an eyebrow, curious, and gently took the envelope, careful not to tear it. He opened it to find a simple thank you note and a small gift card for a local restaurant. He smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond the token. It was the thought, the effort, and the sincerity behind it that touched him. "You really didn't have to," he said softly, placing the envelope carefully on the workbench. Emma shook her head, her eyes earnest. "I wanted to. You helped me when I had no one else. You could have just said no, but you didn't." Tom chuckled quietly, brushing his hands on a rag. "Sometimes helping someone is enough reward. That's all I need." She smiled, a little embarrassed, but her eyes were full of admiration. "I wish I could do more," she admitted. Tom shook his head again. "You've already done more than you know. Sometimes saying thank you, being kind in return, is enough." They fell into a comfortable silence, the garage filled with the faint sounds of the city outside and the occasional creak of the old garage door. Tom noticed Emma glancing at a faded photo hanging on the wall of the garage, one of him in his racing uniform, a wide smile across his face as he held a trophy above his head. He had not realized it was there until now. "Is that you?" she asked quietly, her eyes wide with surprise. Tom looked at the photo, a pang of memory and nostalgia hitting him. He had hoped to keep that part of his life hidden, yet here it was, staring back at both of them. He nodded slowly. "Yes, that was a long time ago. I used to race professionally, in NASCAR." Emma gasped softly, taking a step back. You're famous. I can't believe it." "And you're just here, fixing cars for people." Tom shrugged, smiling faintly. "Fame isn't everything," he said softly. "I learned that the hard way. What matters now is raising my daughter, living a quiet life, and helping where I can." Emma's expression softened, admiration and understanding mixing in her eyes. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you, someone who's lived a big life, and yet still cares about small things like helping me." Tom chuckled. Life has a way of teaching us what really matters. Sometimes the loudest applause isn't the most important, it's the quiet moments, the ones that don't get noticed but mean the most. Emma nodded, taking a deep breath. I wish I had the courage to do what you do. Even after everything you've gone through, you still help strangers, still make time for your daughter. It's inspiring. Tom felt a warmth spread in his chest at her words. He remembered all the struggles, the long nights worrying about bills, the loneliness after his wife passed, and the sudden silence that followed the end of his racing career. He realized that despite all that, moments like this made life feel meaningful again. They shared a smile, and for a moment, it felt like the world outside the garage didn't exist. Time slowed, the hum of the city fading into the background as two people connected in a simple, human way. Then Emma hesitated, glancing at the floor. Can I ask you something personal? She said softly. Tom tilted his head, encouraging her to speak. How did you handle it? All the fame, the pressure, everything. How did you keep going after everything changed? Tom paused, letting the question sink in. He leaned against the workbench, eyes distant for a moment as he remembered the roar of the crowd, the thrill of speed, the accident that had ended his career, and the lonely nights when he wondered if he could manage life on his own. It wasn't easy, he admitted finally. There were nights I cried alone, nights I doubted myself, nights I thought I had nothing left. But then I looked at Lily, and I remembered why I had to keep going. Life isn't about winning races or earning applause, it's about showing up, even when it's hard, and being there for the people who matter. That's what kept me moving forward. Emma listened quietly, her eyes shining with respect and empathy. She realized that behind the quiet, humble man standing in front of her was someone who had faced enormous challenges, not just on the tracks, but in life itself, and had chosen kindness, patience, and resilience over fame or recognition. I think I understand, she said softly. It's not the trophies that define us, it's how we treat others and how we keep moving forward. Tom nodded, feeling a sense of calm he hadn't felt in years. They spent the next hour sharing small stories, Emma about her struggles and dreams, Tom about lessons he had learned from racing and life. The garage, filled with tools and old car parts, seemed to hold a quiet magic that made their conversation feel safe, warm, and sincere. By the time Emma left, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. She waved, smiling brightly. Thank you, Tom, she said once more. For everything. Tom waved back, feeling a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in a long time. As he returned to the kitchen where Lily was waiting with homework and a glass of juice, he realized something important: life wasn't about reliving past glories or holding on to regrets. It was about connection, kindness, and quiet courage, the kind that didn't require recognition but left a lasting impact on those who were lucky enough to experience it. And for the first time in a long time, Tom felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that even small acts of care could create ripples far beyond what he could see, and that sometimes, the simplest human moments were the ones that mattered most. Over the next few weeks, Tom found himself thinking about Emma more often than he expected, though he did not admit it to anyone, not even Lily, who was busy with school projects and playdates. Emma began visiting the garage more regularly, sometimes just to watch him work, sometimes to ask for advice about her car, and occasionally bringing small snacks or drinks as a kind gesture. Their conversations became deeper with each meeting, filled with laughter, quiet understanding, and shared stories that slowly peeled away the layers of their lives. Emma spoke more openly about her dreams, her struggles at the cafe, and her desire to provide a better life for her younger brother, James, who relied on her more than anyone knew. Tom listened, offering encouragement in simple words, and often found himself reflecting on the lessons he had learned from racing, the importance of patience, resilience, and focus, and realizing they apply just as much to life as they did to the track. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emma stayed a little longer than usual, sitting on an old stool while Tom worked under the hood of a car that had belonged to one of his neighbors. She watched silently, her eyes following his hands as they moved with precision, and then she spoke softly, almost hesitant. "You know, I used to think life had to be about big achievements, like making lots of money, winning something, or being famous," she said. Tom paused, leaning back on his stool to wipe the sweat from his forehead. "And now?" he asked gently. She smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting a mix of hope and realization. "Now I see it's about moments like this, small acts of kindness, being there for people, it matters more than anything else." Tom nodded, feeling a quiet warmth spread through him, a sense that what he had been teaching Lily all along through his actions, not words, was true for everyone. As they spoke, he felt a lightness he had not known in years, a reminder that even after loss, failure, and the quiet years away from the racing world, life could still surprise him with friendship, trust, and connection. Days turned into evenings filled with stories, laughter, and the occasional shared silence, where no words were needed, only the presence of someone who understood. One afternoon, as they were finishing up repairs on a car that had been sitting in the garage for months, Emma looked at Tom with curiosity. "I still don't understand," she said, her voice quiet. "You could be anywhere. You could have gone back to racing, or, you could have done anything else with your talent. Why are you here, helping people like me?" Tom paused, the question lingering in the air. He thought about the crowds, the flashing cameras, the roar of engines, and the fleeting thrill of winning, and he realized that none of that compared to the satisfaction of being present in someone else's life in a meaningful way. "I guess I found out that the real race isn't on the track," he said softly. "It's in life, showing up, being honest, helping others, and being a father who can give his daughter the love and guidance she deserves. That's more important than any trophy." Emma nodded, her eyes wide with admiration. "You're incredible, Tom," she whispered, and he felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in the values he had held onto, and in the impact he could have without ever needing recognition. One evening, as they were closing up the garage, a soft knock sounded at the door. A neighbor had come by to ask for help with a minor car issue, and Tom welcomed him inside, showing Emma how he handled multiple tasks, teaching her by example. She watched, fascinated, noticing how naturally he guided, advised, and worked without frustration, always patient and calm, never rushing, always listening. That patience, that calm presence, reminded her of the lessons she had struggled to learn herself: how to balance work, family, and personal challenges with dignity and perseverance. Later, as the day ended, Emma lingered near the door, hesitating before she finally spoke. "You know, I feel different when I'm here," she said softly. "Like I can be myself, without pretending, without worrying about mistakes or failing." Tom smiled, a quiet understanding in his eyes. "That's the best place to be," he said. "Life is full of challenges, but if you have someone to share them with, it doesn't feel as heavy." She nodded, smiling, and for a moment they simply looked at each other, the unspoken connection between them growing stronger with every day they spent together. Tom realized that despite the quiet life he had chosen, despite stepping away from fame and crowds, he had found something equally meaningful: friendship, trust, and a reminder that life's true value is measured in these moments of kindness, understanding, and mutual support. As Emma finally left that evening, Tom watched her walk to her car, her posture confident, her smile genuine, and he felt a sense of calm and hope he had not experienced in years. He knew the journey was far from over, that life would continue to bring challenges, surprises, and unexpected turns, but he also understood that he was not alone, that the past, though important, did not define the present, and that meaningful connections like the one forming with Emma could bring more fulfillment than any race or trophy ever could. When he returned to the kitchen where Lily was finishing her homework, he felt an inner peace, knowing that even in the quiet moments, life had a way of rewarding patience, courage, and kindness. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, he thought about the garage, Emma, and the simple, profound lessons life had taught him, that resilience, empathy, and the willingness to show up for others were what truly made a life worth living, and that even when one chapter ends, another could begin quietly, filled with hope, connection, and the promise of meaningful days ahead. Days passed, and Tom felt a quiet contentment he had not experienced in years. The garage, once just a place filled with tools and memories of a life he had left behind, had transformed into a space of connection, laughter, and learning, where he and Emma shared small, meaningful moments that left lasting impressions on both of them. Lily had begun joining them more often, her curiosity and energy filling the air as she asked questions about engines, bolts, and wheels, eager to learn from her father and from Emma, who had become more than just a visitor. She was a friend, someone who understood their lives and quietly supported them. One evening, as the sky turned a soft shade of purple and the neighborhood was bathed in the golden glow of sunset, Emma pulled her car into the driveway one last time before she had to leave for a temporary job in another town. She stepped out, her eyes bright and thoughtful, carrying a small bag of tools she had bought as a gift, insisting that Tom take them for his work. "You've taught me so much," she said softly, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "Not just about cars, but about patience, courage, and believing in yourself. I don't know how to thank you enough." Tom smiled warmly, shaking his head, feeling a lump of emotion rise in his chest. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "You've learned, grown, and shared your kindness with me too. That's more than enough." Lily, standing shyly behind him, waved, her small face glowing with admiration for both of them. As Emma prepared to leave, she hesitated for a moment, glancing back at Tom with a mix of uncertainty and hope. I hope we'll see each other again," she said quietly, and Tom nodded, feeling the truth in her words resonate deeply. "We will," he promised, though neither of them knew exactly when. Watching her drive away, he realized that life had a way of giving unexpected rewards when people chose kindness, honesty, and connection over pride or fear. The garage felt emptier that night, but also warmer, filled with the memory of laughter, shared stories, and the quiet realization that human connection could bring more joy than any success or fame ever had. Over the next few days, Tom reflected on everything that had happened: the BMW, Emma's visits, the conversations that had stirred memories of his past, and the lessons he had passed on to Lily. He realized that though he had once been a NASCAR legend, celebrated and admired by crowds, the most meaningful victories in life were not the ones on a track, but the ones in ordinary moments, teaching a child, helping someone in need, sharing a laugh, or offering support when it was most needed. One afternoon, he decided to take Lily for a walk to the small park nearby, letting her run ahead while he watched quietly. She laughed as she chased a butterfly, her energy infectious, and Tom felt a swell of emotion, remembering how much life had changed for him, how much he had learned about resilience, love, and patience. On the walk home, they passed Emma's favorite cafe, and Tom noticed her inside, waving at them with a bright smile. He waved back, feeling a sense of warmth that only genuine human connection could bring. That evening, back in the garage, he cleaned his tools slowly, his mind drifting to the past and the present. He remembered the roar of engines, the thrill of racing, and the applause of thousands, but now those memories felt different, fond, yet distant. The real joy was here, in the quiet moments, in the trust and friendship he shared with Emma and the love he had for Lily. He realized that life had a way of surprising those who kept their hearts open, of giving second chances, not through fame or recognition, but through relationships, trust, and shared experiences that left lasting marks on the soul. A week later, Emma returned, this time bringing her younger brother, James, along. Tom welcomed them both, feeling a sense of connection grow stronger with each meeting. He watched as Lily and James played together in the yard, their laughter filling the space with a sense of hope, possibility, and simple happiness. That evening, as they all sat together sharing a meal, Tom noticed Emma looking at him with quiet admiration, her eyes reflecting respect and gratitude. He realized that despite the struggles, the hardships, and the quiet years away from the spotlight, he had found a purpose far greater than any trophy or victory he had ever known. He was teaching, helping, and guiding the next generation, showing by example that life's true measure lay in kindness, resilience, and the courage to keep moving forward even when the path was uncertain. As the night grew late and the children were tucked into bed, Tom sat alone in the garage, looking at the photo of himself in his racing uniform, the trophy in hand. He smiled softly, realizing that his past had shaped him, but it did not define him. The present, with its quiet victories, connections, and acts of care, was far more important. And as he turned off the lights, leaving the garage bathed in the soft glow of the street lamp outside, he felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that life's greatest achievements were not measured by fame or applause, but by the love, trust, and meaningful moments shared with others. In that quiet, ordinary garage, surrounded by tools, memories, and the laughter of children echoing in the night, Tom Harris, the once NASCAR legend, realized that he had finally found the most important victory of all, a life filled with love, connection, and the quiet courage to be kind, to show up, and to make a difference in ways that truly mattered.